Welcome back to Viewpoint. I'm Jim Zogby. The Syrian uprising has given rise to an active opposition movement both inside Syria and among Syrians living abroad. I'm joined by two activists in that movement who are founding members of the Syrian National Council. Ausama Monajed is Executive Director of Strategic Research and Communication Center in London, and a former director of Barada Television, the Syrian opposition TV channel. Dima Moussa is a Syrian-born attorney who's been serving as media spokesperson for a key grassroots movement in Syria. Thanks, both of you, for joining us. The creation of the National Council. Tell me a little about it. You were there?
Well, member of the SNC, yes.
Yeah, and tell me about it, about its goals, and about the mood that surrounded its creation.
Well, we are now in month 7 of the uprising, and the uprising certainly needs a political umbrella, a political representation to unify the demands and talk to the whole world. It's been hard work since the whole revolution started, bringing all different fractions of the Syrian opposition inside and outside the country, and given that Syria is a mosaic country that has different religious, ethnic and political background. But eventually we reached a point where we're able to have this kind of consensus to launch the National Council and distribute the seats of the National Council.
Do you have members inside and outside?
Yes. As of last week, our last meeting on October 2nd, we have now, the General Assembly is 230 seats, and about half of them represent grassroots movements inside Syria, including local coordinating committees and the Damascus Declaration.
How comfortable are you that the broad, as Ausama noted, the broad sort of spectrum of the public in Syria is represented here? Because one thing we continue to hear about are some of the minority groups feeling that there's a figurehead here or there, but that there is not yet a feeling of comfort among minorities that this opposition represents them.
Is this so? Meaning that the different groups are represented? There's definitely, following our last meeting, we have added people from the different spectrums. So now we have also representation for Kurds. There are several Christian Syrians. There's also Assyrians are represented. These are some of the minority groups that come to mind. We feel pretty comfortable that most of, if not all, minority groups and all majority groups are represented based on ethnic background, religious background, political affiliation also.
I'm going to ask you a question. We had a dialogue in Michigan that we sponsored
yes,
about 2 weeks ago, bringing together as many parts of the community as we could to talk about some of the tough issues, because here the community is a little divided, not a little, a lot divided, but a little bit of conversation, not enough people interacting with each other. Wanted to try it out. This issue of minorities kept coming up, and we talked about it, and I felt good that we talked about it. Wasn't quite sure where the resolution was, though, and here's the concern, is that those who say that it can't happen in Syria, what happened in Iraq, or what is happening in Egypt, or what happened in Sarajevo, the response to that is it actually can happen anywhere. How comfortable are you that you're taking the sort of steps to make sure that Alawi and Shia and Christians are included in this process, so that you sort of inoculate yourself against this in the long term?
Well, we have to work on several layers and channels. Number one is to have them included in all the Syrian National Council meetings and draft of agenda and the vision and on future Syria. We have to guarantee their rights in the constitution, the minorities' rights in the constitution, and also in the parliament. The minorities in the National Council are overrepresented even in terms of seats. And being the council being almost half from inside and half from outside, they have local leaders of the different minorities inside the country are also members of the National Council. We have also to articulate the messages that we address these communities with. That our fight in Syria is not against the Alawite, for instance. It's not against a sect. It's the whole country against a dictatorial family that is ruling the country in this, committing all these atrocities. And also a message to the Christians in Syria that you are always protected. Syria has never witnessed a civil war, and despite all of the regime's myth that they are protecting minorities, it's unright. The revolution also joined by Christian and Druze and other minorities in the country, and not only Sunnis, by the way.
Can this National Council negotiate with the regime? Dima?
I think at this point, probably not, because we are representing the revolution, and they're sending a clear message now for a few months that the regime needs to go. So I would say there's no negotiation with the regime as represented by the Assad family and their the people that work with them.
So, so is a transition possible?
In negotiation with the regime, it is scapegoat for this regime, and whoever uses even the term is burnt inside on the grassroots level, number one. Number two, the regime, there's no point in negotiating with a regime that is using tanks and bullets against you in the streets. Let's withdraw your troops, stop the killings, stop the atrocities and rapes of people, and then we can at least sit on the table. Number three, if there is...
So it is possible if the violence stops?
No, but if there is a negotiation, it will never be with those who have committed crimes, not Bashar Assad, not his brother, not the heads of the security apparatus or the leaders of the army. It will be second or third tier, not those people who will be certainly persecuted and tried.
Tell me how you get from here to there. How do you get from where you are to where you want to be, given the fact that it appears that we're at a kind of a stalemate. The regime has overwhelming violence. The popular unrest has not gone away. It continues to manifest itself. And I'm not quite seeing the way forward. I'm not quite seeing the way out. Where does this go?
Well, I think that one of the important steps in this transition is the formation of the SNC. I think that now going forward for us, for the SNC, is gaining the recognition on the international stage that will allow us to do more work to assist the revolution inside and assist also in bringing in some international intervention in some way via observers, for example, into Syria. And I think that would help in moving things along with the revolution.
Let me tell folks here, you can get in the conversation. We'll have time for a few calls. If you're calling from overseas, it's 001-202-420-5665. If you're calling from the U.S., it's 1-202-420-5730. There's no desire for intervention.
No military intervention, no international military intervention, but we want international observers to be sent, whether under U.S. mandate or other different mandates. And
under U.S.?
United Nations Security Council mandate, UN mandate, or under different means. We've seen it in Kosovo in 1998, where there wasn't a UN Security Council resolution, and yet still observers, international observers, went there, and they basically just roamed and drove around. This is the thing that every single activist in the country is now asking for and demanding: protection of civilians, and we have to be very creative and very articulate in finding ways to bypass the UN Security Council in case Russia and China kept blocking this from happening.
Do you have anything to add on that?
No.
Because the issue of the Security Council and the resolution, I know is disturbing to people, but are you concerned about opening a back door to military intervention?
At this point, that's not a concern.
Okay, and Turkey's role? There are those who are suggesting that there might be a Turkish role. Is there anyone who could play a role of this sort? Or is any intervention unacceptable? It is simply the people versus the regime.
No, I mean, Turkey is certainly playing a key role here. They're leading the international effort in lobbying and galvanizing not only on the UN, but also in international powers in Western Europe to move ahead and stronger against Syria. We've seen Erdogan calling Assad to step down. Not only that, but he calling him in the UN, United Nations General Assembly, a liar. That's a huge step forward. We know that they're preparing now for more than 250,000 refugees in case of a military operation. They are preparing, they're doing military exercises. They are thinking of a safety zone on the Turkish side. So all options are laid out there and possible.
Were you surprised?
And Turkey will take the lead in this.
Have you been surprised by the degree to which the regime has burned itself?
No, because I know this regime and I suffered from their, also a brutal treatment to activists and democracy fighters.
And so their deafness did not surprise you? The fact that they just didn't
Absolutely
see?
not. Everyone who went in the streets in Syria expected this regime to retaliate in this way, and despite all of that, they all know that freedom is priceless, but they are all now prepared to pay the price.
Let me go to Washington State for a call. Caller?
Yes.
Yes, your question.
Well, my question is, since the area, we're talking about Syria in particular, even back since 1917, they tried to make changes either through the Balfour,
Give me your question.
Yeah, presentation. What makes it different now that maybe changes can be made internally if they've been having difficulties even from the beginning since 1917 or even prior to that, and they try to make changes, but it always seems to...
Let me stop you there. I've got a caller from Egypt holding, but I just want to get to this. How comfortable are you, confident are you, that change is possible, or will this be a prolonged, agonizing, drawn-out drama?
We have to see the Syrian uprising or Syrian revolution in the context of the Arab Spring. We've seen the change in Tunisia, we've seen the change in Egypt, we are seeing it elsewhere, and it will reach, after Libya, it will reach Syria, certainly.
Let me go to Egypt for a call. Caller?
Okay, hi.
Yes, your question?
I want to know when do you think the Assad regime will go...
I'm sorry?
I want to know when do you think the Assad regime will go out of Syria?
Okay. When do you think the Assad regime will go?
Well, I think that's the million-dollar question, right? If we don't know, it's when they run. There's several options. They run out of their resources for attacking and killing people when the international community comes together. China and Russia come through for the Syrian people. So really, it's hard to tell. There's really no...
I think what we need to watch is indicators. That one indicator is the economy that is declining tremendously and dramatically. One indicator is the social base of the regime is shrinking, also in a very quick way. Another indicator is that the uprising has been tested on the peacefulness for month 7 now without
So
carrying
what
a
happens?
weapon.
Do they give up? Does he just go?
They're just going to fight until the end, until there is a complete collapse of unfortunately, the economy of the country. That's perhaps the Achilles heel.
One hopes sooner than later and with less bloodshed.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us. When we come back, we're going to have an analysis of Tuesday's GOP primary debate, and we'll take a couple calls if we can get them in.